You know, it comes to something when something happens in a church that you go to, and it kind of affects your mental health. Well, the thing I'm trying to do at the moment then is a bit of distraction therapy. Okay, hence the concentration, of course, on Palestine, the Palestinian people, and liberty, an organisation of which I am a member. But they recommend distraction, and I know about distraction, and I've used it before, so just bear with me. With a bit of luck, this bit of distraction won't be too skewiff. So, as ever, freedom for the people of Palestine. May the war criminals be brought to justice. And, well, let's just hope that the genocide can soon be over. Genocide, war criminals, all that lot. But I'm going to go distracted now. And again, Chris, I know you're probably taking some time to get through all of these things I'm sending you, but must meet up with you soon, Chris. And here is J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan and Wendy, and yet another chapter for you lovely people. Yeah. Let's start from today is going to be about, as I said last time, the fly-by-nights. I like the fly-by-nights. Fly-by-night people in your church, maybe even, yeah. The fly-by-nights, it carries on from where we were last time, and it begins. The way to Neverland was very much longer than Wendy, John, and Michael had ever thought. Peter, who said anything that came handy, had made Wendy believe it was as easy as anything to get there. Just second to the right and straight on till morning. Well, it may have been second to the right, but it certainly wasn't straight on after that. Yeah, a bit like me trying to find the fault on surgery. Peter took the children such a long roundabout way and stopped so often to look at things that a lot of the time was lost soon after they started. Of course, it was great fun to be really flying, to be able to go round church steeples or high chimneys, just as if one were a swallow. But it's rather shivery in nighties, and there had been darks and lights and days and nights and seas and lands without getting anywhere in particular. The little darlings very nearly wished they hadn't come. Now, you ever felt that way about certain things? Yeah, I do sometimes. I wish I'd never come. They were so hungry, but there was nothing to eat. And they were so sleepy, but there was no nice bed to snuggle into. I figure there still is a nice bed. They couldn't help shutting their eyes sometimes as they flew. And if they shut their eyes, they dropped down at once, generally over the sea. This happened rather often to Michael, because he was the youngest and the sleepiest, and he'd go falling like a stone towards the water, and Wendy would cry, "Save him, save him!" And just like he was almost in the sea, Peter would dive down and catch him. Read about Peter this morning in the Bible reading at Great Yarmouth Minster. Or was it? No, it was the book of James, and about the damage the tongue can do. Very relevant, I thought. Very relevant. Not because he was sorry for Michael, but just to show how clever he was. Peter thought it was all great fun, watching the children fluttering along while he shot up and down to the stars and to the waves and showed off all the cleverness he knew. Sometimes he went out of sight for quite a long while. They had to fly without a guide as best they could. And when he did come back, he'd nearly forgotten who they were. And indeed, Wendy once had to tell him her name. That happens a lot with me at my age. It was rather lonely, being left alone in the air like this, and they kept on bumping up against clouds, but nobody liked to say anything to blame Peter, because if he were to get so cross with them and perhaps fly away, how would they reach Neverland at all? Still, you may be sure they were very, very glad when, one evening, after they'd been flying ever so long, Peter suddenly said, "There it is! There it is! Where? Where? Where all the arrows are pointing?" The arrows were the rays of the setting sun. They lit up the whole island. The children knew it at once. They felt as if they'd come back home there to a happy, friendly place. That speaks to me. For they could see all the different things they had made believe about. The lagoon was there. I believe it still is. And John's flamingo, and Michael's cave, and Wendy's wolf. Yeah, I believe it still is. Indeed, the children seemed to know as much about the island as Peter did. There was nothing he could not tell them. This rather annoyed him. Yeah, people can annoy you sometimes. You can probably annoy others sometimes, I expect I do. But that's just as they were joyfully calling out to each other, "There's my boat! There's the Redskin camp! The Redskin!" Oh, bear in mind when this was written, please. "Look at the turtles and the sun," and so on. The sun sank. Neverland never grew dark. That must be a pain. It grew darker every moment. It didn't look happy or friendly any longer. It appears that it did grow dark. And the children felt frightened. Well, dark's kind of a bit scary. And as anybody would be who used to go to sleep with night lights. Oh, yeah, maybe we just got to all lose those in time, eh? For there were no night lights here. No nursery, inner child, all that stuff. No Nana, no dear, delightful Mrs. Darling. They were only themselves and Peter. Lost boys. Think about it, Chris. Who might very likely leave them in the dark. Just for fun, Chris, you'd never do that. I know you wouldn't. I know none of you would. I know you never would. And that makes me feel good. They were flying over the island now, so low that sometimes their feet touched the treetops. They kept as close to Peter as they could. And the horrid part was, they felt as if somebody or something was trying to stop them. That speaks to my mind. So they had to push their way. Yet there was nothing to be seen. And Peter, who seemed very gay and cheerful. Sorry, I just had to do that, please. It's not an insult. It's nothing against the LBGT community or anything like that. Okay, because, well, anyway. Who could they be? By and by he wanted to know who they would rather have first. Which they would rather have first, an adventure or tea? Wendy and Michael wanted tea, but John thought he'd like the adventure until he found out what sort of adventure it was. Peter said there was a pirate asleep in the grass just beneath them, and if John liked, they could go down and kill him. Here, killing's not for me. Killing's not for me. John, however, could not see the pirate, and he thought it would be best to have tea first. He asked, "Are there many pirates on the island now?" "Never known so many," said Peter. "Why do you come from Norfolk? I don't know." "Who is the captain?" Peter looked very grave and stern as he answered with one word, "Hook." "Not Jas Hook?" "Yes." This was dreadful. Michael began to cry, and John had a nasty dry feeling in his throat, for he had heard of Jas Hook. even in the peacefulness of their nursery and the quiet of their kindergarten, must be thinking of the producers, which is coming soon to the Pavilion Theatre. Well done, Pav. The name Hook made people very uneasy. There was no pirate, alive or dead, quite so terrible as Hook. And now they were, as you may say, nearly face to face with him. He was the last man they'd ever expected to meet. Oh boy, this guy knows bad news, doesn't he? What is he like? Said John, with a gulp. He's big. Not so big as he was. How do you mean? I cut a bit of him off. You? Yes, me, said Peter rather snappishly. I didn't mean to be rude, said John. Oh, all right. But what bit did you cut off? Forgive where my mind is going, please. His left hand, thank goodness for that. John cheered on hearing this and said, then he can't fight now. Peter replied, oh, he can't just? He has an iron hook, me hearties, instead of a hand, and claws with it. Everybody turned pale. I think I would too. Now, John, look here. Yes, say aye, sir, said Peter sharply. This guy's demanding a bit of respect, isn't he? John was feeling so serious about Hook that he said, aye, sir, as meek as a mouse. Well, that didn't sound quite as meek as a mouse. Every boy who serves under me, said Peter, has got to promise one thing. So you must. It's this. If we meet Hook in an open fight, you must leave him to me, and don't go at him yourself. Aye, sir, said John. I promise. Meanwhile, Tinker Bell was lighting their way quite nicely. By going round and round as they flew, they could not see much of the island below them, but they could see Peter and each other. Peter stopped every minute or two and listened. He could poise in the air like a bird, staring down through the darkness. Then he would go on again without explaining anything. This made the children rather uneasy, but they thought he must know what he was about. By and by, he suddenly said, Tink tells me the pirates sighted us before it was dark. Oh dear. And on that, oh dear, I will end. I will end my bit of distraction and go on to another bit of distraction. These things need to be sorted with people. I'm not even going to say their name. But all of you listening just to the story, I hope you enjoyed it. It was absolutely brilliant. It was being at the Minster service online this morning. It was good. They have, as I probably put to somebody, got an 1830, getting a bit military, aren't they? 1836, 6:30 service about in relation to the Battle of Britain, which I don't know, I might go or not. I don't know. Feels like my head's all over the place. It's not good, folks, but trust in God, love God, love your neighbour as yourself, and do your best. Maybe in the darkness, that light is still shining. In the darkness, your light's still shining. Is it? I think it is. Bye.